I just want to go back to the thing I was most concerned about in reading all of this today, and that's that these little children are found on these farms. I mean, are we really saying here in the year 2025, well, we have to maintain the status quo of illegal immigration in the United States because we need little children to pick marijuana in California? It's like blowing my mind.
No, you know, Scott, I think you're making a really, frankly, it's a very important point. I mean, the fact that young children, immigrants or not, are working on these farms, whether they're forced to because they have to make money for their families, or maybe they, you know,
for whatever here to do that,
or for whatever reason. I totally agree that that is something that we as a country need to address. But I think you have to acknowledge that there has been no effort made by policymakers, Republican or Democrat, to address the driving causes of that, which are the employers willing to employ these children. Who is employing a 16-year-old undocumented immigrant?
Yeah,
and
I
why
agree.
are those
I mean, one of the
questions
farms that was raided, I read, is even a Gavin Newsom donor. I think the governor of California should ask why you're doing these things. And I don't have a problem going after employers.
By the way,
I really don't.
I know you want to make it about California, but it's not about California.
Well, in this case,
there are parents who are being kidnapped by this agency whose children are literally dying. And so if we're so concerned about children, maybe we should stop kidnapping people while their children are dying and their sole caretakers are being deported by ICE. There are multiple cases where they are kidnapping people out of hospitals.
What does kidnapping mean?
It means a government agency has been given license to disappear people. That is what it means.
What does that mean?
Right.
So you mean an ICE agent takes an illegal immigrant into custody?
We got to squeeze in a quick
but you don't
break.
know if they're an illegal immigrant. That is my point. I don't use that term. You don't know what their status is. Okay. And so if you can just come and snatch somebody off the street and say you don't get due process, then that means I'm not a citizen. It is a disgusting thing that we're watching, and anybody who defends it is disgusting and despicable and deplorable when you see...
Boy. So we got to continue our coverage of the left going full mask off when it comes to their radical support of human trafficking of undocumented children to do slave labor on marijuana farms, okay? The fallout from ICE raiding the marijuana farms in California has revealed that Democrats are in fact supporting these farmers who are using child slave labor, right? Undocumented children. We're talking about young children under the age of 10 that are out on these farms doing slave labor, and for whatever reason, leftists care about everything except the fact that you have children on pot farms doing slave labor.
We have the ICE Gestapo was raiding a farm in Ventura County, California, and they were tear gassing the children of people they were deporting. You had these kids on the phone talking to their parents or trying to get in touch with their parents who were grabbed by the ICE Gestapo, and ICE started tear gassing them. They weren't doing anything. They weren't hurting anybody. ICE started tear gassing them. You also had probably the most pushback I've ever seen yet to the ICE Gestapo thugs because you had somebody driving an El Camino who tried to block the road from it was like a whole bunch of military trucks trying to go to this farm and all decked out in military gear, faces covered, hardcore weapons and stuff. You had an El Camino try to block the road to prevent them from getting to the farm. You also had the ICE Gestapo thugs used helicopters and landed them at a farm, rounding up farm workers. There was also some incident involving a gun. I saw videos of people fighting back against the ICE Gestapo by throwing rocks at their SUVs as they were trying to leave. This shit is getting out of hand. And remember, Trump came out not that long ago multiple times and said, when it comes to the farm workers, when it comes to the hotel workers, we're going to do a little something to protect them. We got to look out for our farmers. And then immediately after he says that, within a week, you have countless more raids of farms going after farm workers, which tells me that Stephen Miller is really the one, with the reins. I mean, ultimately the buck stops with Trump, but mentally he's seemingly checked out. And Stephen Miller's like, yeah, we're not doing that. And so that's where you get these horrible pictures and these horrible videos. I mean, this is quite literally an invasion of Los Angeles, an invasion of the United States of America by the California National Guard, by the Marines, which, by the way, they were involved in this ICE Gestapo raid. And so just horrible pictures, horrible videos coming out of that.
Yeah, so imagine considering yourself a serious political commentator and not stopping and asking the question of, wait, hold on. Why is there children on pot farms, right? Why are children doing labor on a pot farm, right? I understand people being upset about ICE using tear gas, which, you know, I mean, at the end of the day, they only had to do what they had to do because you had people obstructing, right? When you obstruct, yes, they have to use force, right, in order to stop the obstruction. It is what it is. But, again, to not ask the question of why are there children there in the first place, right? Again, it just shows you how unserious these people are and that they will literally support anything when it comes to mass illegal immigration into this country, including children for slave labor. Never let these people gaslight you into believing that they're not the same party that they were back in 1863, right? When they fought tooth and nail to preserve slavery in this country, okay? Democrats love slavery, okay? And they never stop loving slavery because they're a party built on slavery, and illegal immigrants is the modern day slave labor for the Democrat Party. And this is why they're so pissed off. This is why they're so upset by the fact that Republicans are once again trying to take away their slave labor. Okay, it's really shameful stuff. Okay, so shameful that we got to talk about this segment here on CNN involving Abby Phillip, who is going to expose herself once again as a Democrat Party / liberal propagandist, as she's going to seemingly try to defend and dismiss concerns about child labor being used, the slave labor being used to grow pot, right? As if it's not really a big deal. And Jillian Michaels is going to do a pretty good job of setting her straight on this. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into this.
Let's look at what just happened at the glass house marijuana farm. Here's what people don't want to see. On the other side, they don't want to see people throwing rocks into the cars of federal agents. They don't want to hear that someone supposedly opened fire on them. They also don't want to learn that there are a bunch of kids there that are undocumented or unaccompanied, and they think this is crazy talk, and we should be focusing on that. For one thing, how did those kids get there?
Well, I just want to add one thing. We do have to go, but the UFW, the United Farm Workers, put out a statement about this. They said the UFW can confirm farm workers were critically injured yesterday during chaotic raids in Ventura County, California. Others, including U.S. citizens, remain totally unaccounted for. Many workers, including U.S. citizens, were held by federal authorities at the farm for 8 hours or more. U.S. citizen workers report only being released after they were forced to delete photos and videos of the raid from their phones. They also added that farm work is exempted from child labor laws. So
you're telling me undocumented?
I'm not saying the undocumented. I'm not talking about
at a marijuana farm.
I'm not talking about the undocumented part, but according to this statement, in this,
but they are undocumented children, so you can't dismiss that, right? Again, this is how far CNN. Abby Phillip will go to be a Democrat Party propagandist, to be a liberal propagandist. She's literally trying to defend. Okay, trying to defend these farmers, okay, using child slave labor, okay? These are the same people who are boo-hoo-whining and crying about Florida loosening up some of their laws for American teenagers, okay, who already got jobs to be able to work a little bit more. They would cry, oh, you can't do that, it's so terrible. But now all of a sudden they're trying to defend kids working on pot farms. Oh, well, see, you don't understand. Technically, that's not illegal. Wait, so you're defending this? You think that this is right? You think this is right? Again, this is, wow, insanity, absolute insanity.
Country, not just at farm, not at marijuana farms, at all
semantics.
Farms.
Look at the reality of what
I'm
we're
just saying,
talking about. How did an unaccompanied, undocumented 14-year-old in the middle of the day?
I believe, and many people might believe, children should be subject to child labor laws.
Absolutely.
But it's true in this country that when it comes to agricultural work, they're not, and that includes marijuana farms. So the legality of their status is a separate issue. But
no, it's not. It's not a separate issue. You have children who were probably trafficked into this country from cartels, right? By cartels. They're being used as slave labor. Okay, that is not something that you can just dismiss. She's trying to dismiss it as if it's not a big deal. This is insanity. This is CNN, folks. This is CNN, right? CNN. This is what they're defending.
But the fact of children being there is not actually something that is necessarily illegal.
I have a really hard time believing
So there's
that.
So it's not unusual for there to be teenagers and working in a farm.
A 14-year-old can work at a marijuana growing.
It doesn't matter whether it's a marijuana farm or an apple farm.
A kid can't work at a bar.
It's agriculture. They're not smoking
If that's the
marijuana.
law, that's outrageous.
They're cultivating it.
Changed.
The point is this incident, and we're still learning a lot more about it, was very dangerous and put a lot of people, including ICE officers and those immigrants, in danger.
Federal law enforcement agents.
I agree with you, but the tactics are producing chaos and violence, and I think that is one of the things that's caused.
The tactics are not producing chaos and violence. The domestic terrorists who are attacking ICE, they're the ones that are producing chaos and violence. Again, these people make me sick. They make me sick. They're literally trying to blame ICE. Well, it's your fault that these liberals are trying to kill you. It's your fault that they're shooting at you. It's their fault that they're committing these acts of domestic terrorism, because you shouldn't be trying to do your job. You shouldn't be trying to enforce immigration law. Again, this is mask off stuff from these people. Complete and total mask off. These people are insane. Absolutely insane.
People to
who attacked first? That's my question.
We don't know.
Well,
we will find out.
It seems like there's.
Yeah, so you see that, you heard that, okay? This is insane, right? So insane that Jillian Michaels followed up on this segment by pointing out that no, in fact, what Abby Phillip was saying is not true, right? She says, it turns out there is no weed growing license that permits minors, legal or undocumented, to work at a marijuana farm. Federal and state laws, federal law, Fair Labor Standards Act, non-agricultural children under 14 cannot work. Those age 14 to 15 are restricted to limited hours and safe jobs. 16 to 17 may work unlimited hours, but still cannot perform hazardous work. Agricultural exemptions exist, allowing minors age 12 plus to perform some farm duties outside school hours, but hazardous occupations remain off limits. FLSA explicitly lists agricultural labor that can harm health or well-being as prohibited for minors. Since cannabis cultivation is classified as hazardous, minors are barred from virtually all roles in a licensed marijuana growth operation. Yeah, so again, regardless of whether or not you think it's okay, for minors to be working on marijuana farms, they're here illegally and defending illegals, right, who are minors, who are not in the country legally, working, doing slave labor is bad, right? I think that's bad. And again, the fact that we've gotten to the point in politics where CNN anchors can't just admit that that's bad, right? Where they're trying to defend this, yeah, that is not good, right? It really shows you how extreme and radical Democrats have become, and just how far their liberal media propagandists will go to defend them, right? And that is a big issue, right? It's a big issue, because now they're basically trying to justify violence against ICE, right? Like, for example, MSDNC, they're basically saying that, well, if ICE agents are wearing a mask, which the only reason they have to wear masks is because you literally have these leftists who are threatening ICE, doxing ICE, trying to kill ICE agents for doing their jobs. But, hey, them doing their jobs while wearing a mask, that opens them up for people to commit acts of violence against them, in which, again, MSNBC is basically justifying it, and that's where we're at. Take a look.
Because you're a prosecutor, I want to ask you, there are legitimate reasons why some enforcement agencies, some police agencies go undercover or, do things in shadows to achieve certain things. I would assume that's specific and it needs to comport with some laws.
Exactly. There are very serious legal restrictions around the use of, for instance, FBI agents as undercover operatives. Very strict rules regarding how it's done, what they can do, what they can't do. But you know what I've never seen a federal agent working a case do is pull a mask up so nobody knows who they are and go out and terrorize a civilian population. And I think it's important for us at this point to be very plain speaking. when we say that this is not normal, it's not acceptable, and it's a danger sign. You know, we are well past the point where we can just identify danger signs and say, oh, there might be problems down the road. The problems are here, they're in the right now. And as we see people being pulled off the streets, you know, the danger to law enforcement, quite frankly, is that when you're masked like that and people don't know who you are, someone might exercise their lawful right of self-defense to protect themselves, thinking they're being kidnapped. So the notion that this is for law enforcement's protection is utterly ludicrous, and we need to do away with that.
Yeah, so there you have it, right? There you have it. MSNBC is basically promoting this idea that ICE, they should not be able to protect their identities, even though you have left-wing extremists trying to kill them, right? Trying to commit acts of domestic terrorism, trying to terrorize their families, their kids. Nah, they shouldn't be able to protect themselves. No. In fact, illegals have a right to self-defense, right? They have a right to self-defense against the ICE agents, right? If they're wearing masks. And whatever happens, right? It's basically their fault. It's their fault for doing their job, right? That they, get attacked or they get killed by some left-wing radical or an illegal immigrant. That is where we're at in this country. That's where we're at. And it's just, it's so fascinating to me because these people understand the game. They know the game. The game is to make it as hard as possible for President Trump to deport the illegals, right? Because there was zero adherence to the law as Biden imported the illegals, right? Let the illegals into the country. And now when Trump tries to actually enforce the law, oh no, they want to make sure that he has to jump through every single hoop possible in order to deport the illegals when Biden didn't have to jump through any hoops to let them in. And it's like, nah, that's not how this game works. Okay, we are not going to fall for that. We're just not going to. Okay, we're going to do what we got to do. The mass deportations will happen, and they can keep boohoo whining and crying about it. But ultimately, at the end of the day, the illegals will be deported. And also on top of that, these business owners, these people who are employing these illegals, they need to be held accountable. Okay, the pot farm needs to be shut down, and the owner needs to be arrested and held accountable for the fact that he not only is employing illegals at a large scale, but also children as well too, right? That is something that we cannot have, okay? And once you start cracking down on these employers, then that will go a long way to cracking down on illegal immigration, okay? So let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.